What happens when an empire built on honor meets a weapon that rewrites humanity itself? In August 1945, Japan stood on the edge of extinction, torn between ancient pride and modern destruction. Its surrender didn't just end World War II. It reshaped the entire global order for generations. From the ashes of Hiroshima rose a new world divided by ideology and bound by fear. Stay with us and subscribe to uncover how Japan's final war changed not only its fate, but the destiny of all mankind. By mid-1945, Japan's empire was collapsing. Its cities lay in ruins from relentless Allied bombing. Food and fuel were scarce, yet its military leaders refused to surrender. They believed death was preferable to dishonor. The ancient code of the samurai still guided their hearts. Even as defeat loomed, they prepared to die with their emperor's name on their lips. The Allies knew invasion would be catastrophic. Planners estimated that taking Japan's home islands, Operation Downfall, could cost millions of lives. Every soldier remembered Iwo Jima and Okinawa, where defenders fought to the last man. The Japanese army trained civilians with bamboo spears. Schoolgirls practiced self-sacrifice. Surrender for Japan was unthinkable. But the world was about to witness a weapon that made the unthinkable inevitable. On August 6, 1945, an American B-29 bomber named Enola Gay dropped an atomic bomb over Hiroshima. In seconds, the city vanished, minus 70,000 dead instantly, tens of thousands more in the days that followed. A mushroom cloud rose higher than mountains. Humanity had entered a new age, one defined by light, fire, and silence. 3 days later, on August 9th, another bomb fell on Nagasaki. The destruction was unimaginable, but even then, Japan's military factions hesitated. Many officers argued that surrender would shame the emperor and the nation. They urged one final battle, a suicidal defense of the homeland. But fate intervened from the north. That same day, the Soviet Union declared war on Japan. Within hours, 1.5 million Red Army troops poured into Manchuria, annihilating Japanese forces in the region. It was a shock Japan hadn't anticipated. Its last hope for mediation through Moscow vanished. Caught between atomic fire and Soviet steel, Japan faced the impossible. The emperor had to decide between annihilation or survival. For centuries, the emperor was considered divine, a descendant of the sun goddess Amaterasu. To even suggest surrender in his name bordered on heresy. But Emperor Hirohito, quiet and reserved, saw the truth. The war could not continue without destroying Japan completely. His decision would defy centuries of tradition and save millions of lives. On August 14, 1945, Hirohito made history. He recorded a radio address, the first time his people would ever hear his voice. In measured poetic language, he announced Japan's surrender. To avoid further suffering, he never used the word defeat, but the message was clear. The age of the divine warrior had ended with the voice of a god asking for peace. The announcement stunned the nation. Some cried in disbelief, others bowed in silence. But not all accepted it. Fanatical officers launched the Kairyu incident, an attempted coup to prevent surrender and seize the imperial palace. They failed, but their desperation showed how deep Japan's devotion to honor truly ran. On September 2, 1945, aboard the USS Missouri in Tokyo Bay, Japan formally surrendered to the Allies. General Douglas MacArthur stood as supreme commander, towering in both height and symbolism. Japanese officials signed the document with trembling hands, watched by representatives of nations from around the world. The moment was solemn, almost sacred, the end of one world and the birth of another. World War II, the deadliest conflict in history, was finally over. For Japan, defeat was total. Its cities were ashes, its military disarmed, its empire gone. But beneath the rubble lay something unexpected, a chance to rebuild, not as conqueror, but as creator. MacArthur's occupation would transform Japan from a militarist empire into a democratic nation. The samurai spirit would find new expression in peace, not war. The Allied occupation, lasting from 1945 to 1952, was one of the most ambitious social experiments in history. Japan's army was disbanded, its empire dissolved, and its industries redirected toward reconstruction. The new Constitution of Japan, written under MacArthur's guidance, renounced war forever. Article 9 declared the Japanese people forever renounced the threat or use of force. It was the sword turned into a plowshare. Hirohito remained emperor, but no longer divine. He became a symbol of the states, stripped of political power. To the Allies, keeping him was crucial for stability. To his people, it was a bridge between past and future. His quiet acceptance of reform helped Japan heal. Even gods, it seemed, could learn humanity. As Japan rebuilt, the world around it transformed. The atomic bombings had shown that human destruction now threatened all life on Earth. The line between victory and annihilation had vanished. The same month Japan surrendered, the United Nations was founded, a fragile hope to prevent another global catastrophe. Stalingrad and Hiroshima became twin warnings written in blood and fire. But peace was short-lived. The same Soviet forces that had crushed Japan's armies now occupied much of Eastern Europe. Tensions between the US and USSR ignited the Cold War, a new kind of conflict fought not with armies, but with ideologies. The atomic age Japan had witnessed firsthand became the shadow under which the whole world now lived. Hiroshima was no longer just a city, it was a symbol of fear. For the Japanese people, the post-war years were a paradox. They had lost everything, yet gained freedom. Censorship, militarism, and propaganda vanished almost overnight. Women won the right to vote. Education and civil rights flourished. The new Japan was being forged not by conquest, but by conscience. Economically, the transformation was astonishing. US aid poured in to rebuild infrastructure and industry. Factories that once made weapons began producing cars, radios, and electronics. By the 1960s, Japan had risen from ruins to become the world's second-largest economy. The economic miracle was the revenge of resilience. Culturally, Japan redefined itself. The samurai's discipline became the engineer's precision. The artisan's pride turned into corporate craftsmanship. Tradition merged with modernity. Tea ceremonies coexisted with bullet trains. The same nation that once preached sacrifice now celebrated creation. Peace had become Japan's new armor. For the Allies, the surrender reshaped strategy across Asia. The US occupied Okinawa and established bases that still exist today. Japan became the cornerstone of Western influence in the Pacific, a buffer against communist expansion. From ashes, an alliance was born, one that endures into the modern day. The former enemy became America's strongest partner. Yet the moral weight of Hiroshima and Nagasaki never faded. Debates raged. Were the bombs necessary, or were they vengeance disguised as strategy? Historians still argue, but the survivors, the hibakusha, carried the answer in their scars. Their stories reminded the world that victory and tragedy can share the same moment. Peace had come, but at an unbearable cost. Japan turned remembrance into art and activism. Every August, the bells of Hiroshima ring, echoing through silent crowds. Children release paper cranes in memory of Sadako Sasaki, who died from radiation at age 12. Her 1,000 cranes became a global symbol of peace. The world had learned what never to repeat. The transformation of Japan became a global model. A defeated empire reborn as a peaceful democracy. It was unprecedented. Western nations saw in Japan a success story of occupation and reform. Asian neighbors, once victims of its aggression, watched its humility grow. The last samurai had become the first modern pacifist. Politically, the surrender redrew the map of Asia. Korea was divided. China's civil war reignited, and the US rose as a Pacific superpower. The ripple effects reached from Tokyo to Berlin, from Vietnam to Washington. The world had entered a new balance of power, unstable but interconnected. World War II's ending became the Cold War's beginning. Inside Japan, a quiet identity struggle brewed. Many still revered the old ways, while others embraced democracy and consumer culture. The nation walked a tightrope between tradition and modernity. But its resilience lay in balance, learning from the past without repeating it. The cherry blossom and the neon light coexisted in fragile harmony. For Hirohito, life after the surrender was one of paradox. Once worshipped as divine, he now toured factories, gardens, and disaster sites as a humble man. He bowed to his people instead of ruling them. To some, he remained controversial. To others, a symbol of Japan's rebirth. His silence became his atonement. By the time of his death in 1989, Japan had become a symbol of peace and progress. Its constitution still renounced war. Its technology reshaped the world. The empire that once sought domination now led by innovation. From warrior to builder, that was Japan's final transformation. The sword had become the circuit. Globally, Japan's surrender forced nations to rethink war itself. If one bomb could end a city, then war had outlived reason. Deterrence replaced conquest. Diplomacy replaced invasion. The world now lived in fear of repeating 1945. The samurai had fallen, but their lesson became eternal. Modern Japan still carries the ghost of its past. Its pacifist constitution is both shield and burden in a dangerous world. But that restraint became its moral strength, earning admiration even from former foes. In choosing peace, Japan reshaped what power means. True victory, it discovered, lies not in conquest but in restraint. From Hiroshima's ashes to Tokyo's neon skyline, Japan's journey is unlike any in history. It turned loss into wisdom, defeat into discipline, and pain into progress. Its people endured the unimaginable, then rebuilt a future worth protecting. The world it helped create, democratic, technological, and cautious, still bears its fingerprints. The last samurai may have fallen, but his spirit guards us still. Japan's surrender in 1945 was not the end of a war, it was the beginning of a new world. A world shaped by lessons written in fire and rebuilt with hope. Subscribe to uncover more untold stories that reveal how history's darkest hours gave birth to the modern age. Because sometimes the greatest transformation begins with the courage to stop fighting.